Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing a crash course on how you can improve your applications for the BNG and how to learn from the feedback you get back if you do fail. Because not only is it a part of the BN mentorship program, but also I think it's just a good thing to have as a PSA, because a lot of people, they don't really understand how the process works or how we evaluate people. So I just want to be very clear and translate everything. And at the end, we're going to see essentially a feedback translator where we'll see the most common rejection reasons and feedbacks given to failed applicants, and I'm going to explain what exactly those things mean and how you can learn and improve from that feedback, okay? So let's go. This is how most people apply for the BNG, okay? They mod a couple maps until they get 100 kudos or 200 kudos or however much is the limit that they need to reach. And then they take the 3 or 4 best mods that they think is they're the most thorough, they're the mods that they put the most effort in, right? And then they're gonna take those mods, they're gonna go to the RC test, pass the RC test or whatever, and then apply with the mods that they thought were okay. Then they're gonna fail. Inevitably, they're gonna read the feedback, they're gonna take away very little from that feedback, and they're gonna just repeat from step 1. They're just gonna mod a couple maps again, and then take the 3 and 4 best, and then they're gonna be stuck in this endless loop. But here's how I want you to apply, okay? If you understand that this is a recursive loop, so if you don't do anything, and you don't take anything from the feedback, you don't improve your modding ability, or you don't take external help or get someone to actually help you with the modding process, tell you what you're doing wrong, tell you what you're doing right, then this is a very recursive process. You will keep doing this until you get bored, until you lose interest, or until you pass through either sheer luck or through just trial and error, learning feedback, learning through the feedbacks that you get. So, but it will take a long time, okay? So, here's how I want you to apply. I want you to find 3 to 4 maps that you know you're capable of modding, okay? It doesn't have to be, don't put too much thought into this. If you see a map, and you can tell the problems in that map, and the primary problem in that map, or maybe there's like a small secondary problem, and you know you can explain those problems and explain how to solve them, then take those maps and mod them as soon as possible, okay? Because sometimes other people will see the same thing you do, and they're gonna mod it before you. So just, if you find a map like that, like, mod it within like a day or 2. It's perfectly fine to take a little bit more time if you find it in like a graveyard, or it's like an older map that you know is not going to be modded. But yeah, but essentially find 3 or 4 maps that you know you can mod and that have mistakes that are not very easily spottable, but you know you can spot, and you know you can actually mod it correctly. Like, even if it's obvious, it's like a very clear mistake that everyone that has like even an ounce of modding experience can tell is a mistake. If you know how to spot that, you know how to solve that, you know how to word that, then take that map, store it in a drawer somewhere, and then mod it and submit it to your applications, because those are the best maps. The maps that have a couple, maybe small problems, maybe big problems, but you know you can actually spot them and actually mod them properly, okay? Importantly, though, is that those maps are not complete train wrecks of a map. So what do I mean by train wreck? I mean that the map is extremely bad, right? So the map is by a new mapper, or the map is like an extreme shitpost, because what does that do? That means the map's going to have a billion things, right? A billion problems, a billion issues, which means that you're not going to be able to point out every single one of them. And even if you do, that's not a realistic scenario for a BN. If you know, like, it's very easy to see that a map is bad, right? Like a bad map, really, really bad map is bad. But what we're trying to evaluate when you're applying to the BNG is we're trying to evaluate if you know how to essentially parse through the maps that look good and see if they have anything bad hidden within them, right? So if the map just has a billion bad things, like, everyone is going to know that that map is bad. So what's the point of even, like, showing that you can mod that map? Because it's going to be denied anyway. Like, as a BN, you're looking at maps that are above a certain level from, like, the first glance. So if you're a BN and you look at one of those maps, you're just going to instantly move on from it, saying, no, the map is too inexperienced, too bad, right? So this is an important step. Second step, ensure that most of them, so all but one of them, are full spreads. So what is a full spread? They have diffs essentially starting at easy or normal. So they're going to go up from normal to hard, hard to insane, insane to extra, and you go, like, over and over until you reach the top diff, right? So ensure that most of them, if not all of them, are full spreads. Why is this an important step? Because spread modding is one of the key components of being a BN, and if you mod too many marathons in your application, or too many single diff maps, then you're not going to get enough data that you know how to mod spreads, and then we're not going to pass you because, you know, this is a key thing a BN should do, and you have not shown that you can do it, okay? We have to assume that you're not able to do anything until you prove that you're able to do that thing. So, yeah, just most of your maps that you find here should be full spreads. One of them, at most, I should recommend, at most one of them should be or could be a marathon, right? So you can have 0 or 1 marathons, but ensure that most of them are full spreads. Third step, thoroughly go through and make sure you mod all the issues you identified in your first pass through. So when you were finding those maps, if you spotted the issues, right? If you identified those issues, make sure that you thoroughly and convincingly mod them in those maps, right? So thoroughly go through them, make sure you mod all the issues you identified in your first pass through, complete with ways to fix them. So it's important to give solutions and justifications. Those people in the BN Modding Mentorship Program already know about the where, why, and how to fix it, right? So why is it a problem? Where is the problem? And how do I fix this problem? These are the 3 key questions that you need to answer on every modding post. So it's very important that you have those 3 answers very clearly identifiable in each mod, especially the most general and, like, big problem stamps that you have in your mods. Those are very important. So make sure to thoroughly mod those maps. You don't, like, the worst part about evaluating a BN application is seeing someone have this map with clear problems. Like, they found a good map, but they don't thoroughly mod it. They have, like, 1 or 2 mods on each difficulty when there's more problems than just that. Okay, so you want to be thorough. Not nitpicky, but thorough. Then the 4th step, this is not necessarily optional, like, you should do this, but if you don't have the resources to do this, and nobody's actually, like, agreeing to help you, you can skip this. But ask experienced modders or people that are current BNs if the mods you did are good and if you missed anything important. Because the NATs can't help you. The NATs are the ones evaluating. If the teacher told you the answer to the test, every test would be very easy, right? But the other people who can help you, because this is technically an open book exam, are the people who have gone through the test before, or the people who know how the test is done, right? So, experienced modders, they know good things about modding, and they know if you missed anything important. In current BNs, they literally had to go through this test before. And under most circumstances, they should be good enough to actually answer any questions, or at least, know if you've missed something very important in one of those application mods. So, make sure that if you can, you ask people who are in the know if your mods are good, right? And then you just take the RC test and you apply with the mods that you separated, right? And 6 is important. If you still fail, use the feedback. Use the feedback that you get, right? And I'll translate the feedback at the end of the video, but essentially use the feedback that you get to help spot the problems with your mods and fix them for next time around. And then you repeat the process, but it's a much shorter loop. You shouldn't fail if you take these steps and very carefully follow them. Okay? So, yeah. What are a couple common issues in this process? These two at the top are going to be either fixable issues or issues that aren't big, right? Issues that, if they exist, they can be either worked around, or with time, they do just fade away. The other 4 are going to be issues that stop you from essentially applying properly. Okay, so let's start. I don't know how to find maps to mod. So, a common misconception that people have with the application system is that you have to open a modding queue, or you have to have people send you good maps to mod, when that's not true. You don't need to mod maps that are pending. A lot of people think, oh, I should mod maps that people are actively looking for mods, right? But what you can do is that you can just gather throughout either playing lots of grade maps, or something like other people's modding queue back in the day. You can just scroll through maps and see, hey, I have this map from 2019 that has very clear issues that I know how to mod, and I can probably mod this map. Let me just ask the mapper first if they're fine with me modding that map. Even if they don't reply to it, just hey, I'm gonna mod this map for a BN app because I've identified it as a potentially good map for me to mod. Is that okay? It's very simple, right? It takes a little bit of time because you do have to scan through a lot of maps, and you have to kind of know what to look for. But it's a good idea. I'd say choosing the maps that you mod with for the application, they are that process of choosing the maps is halfway of actually making a good application. The maps you mod and the maps you choose to submit, those are an extremely big part of whether you pass or fail. And that's just true. As much as I wish that wasn't true, we have no data on you. And we sure as hell are not going to go into your profile and look at every single mod post you've done. So we have to know, through whatever you submit, what is your modding level, what do you miss, what do you get right, and are you ready to become a BN, right? So the maps you mod need to be good enough to show us all of that, right? So they need to be well chosen, not necessarily good enough, but they need to be chosen properly so that we can gather all of that from that one application. The second issue is I don't know experienced modders or BMAP nominators that can help me with my mods, and that is normal. Like, that is extremely normal. And my best advice on how to tackle this issue is ask. Just go into a BN's PMs and be like, hey, this isn't a BN request, but can you check, or can you help me if you're available? If this map that I modded, like, is the mod any good? Did I miss anything too big? And some people might not reply, but the most you get is a no. Like, nobody's gonna offend you. Nobody's gonna hold anything against you for asking. So just ask a BN and be like, hey, here's I've modded something and I'm trying to become a BN. Do you think this mod is good? Can you tell me if I've missed anything important? Can you tell me what I did that you didn't like? Just give me constructive criticism. And I'm sure, at least, this is a conservative number, but at least 40% of the BNs can and probably will try to help you, because it's a hard process, and people know it's a hard process, right? So the other 4, they're tougher because they mean you're probably not ready to become a BN, right? So you're probably not ready to become a BN if you don't know how to assess if a map you're modding is not bad, right? Is not absolutely unsalvageable, essentially. So if you don't know how to assess that, you need more experience. You need to look at more maps, you need to play more maps, you need to look at what's in the ranking section and what's not in the ranking section, and basically know how proper spacing, emphasis, rhythm construction, representation of the song, spread is done. There are modding guides out there. There is the BN mentorship program. There are a lot of other things that you can try and use to get to that level. But if you don't know this is a very basic step. You probably should not apply for the BNG. I don't know how to explain to a mapper what they're doing wrong. This is an issue in the modding process, and how do you fix this? Well, you ask. You ask experienced modders or BNs again, how can I explain this issue that I see in this map? And then a lot of people will just help you and reply, oh, hey, explain this issue by doing this, this, and that. You can explain it as an issue of spacing, or rhythm, or contrast, or whatever else, right? So ask. But this also means you probably lack a little bit of experience. But this is a little bit of an easier problem to fix, because it's direct. You know what the problem is. This is more of a problem of perception and experience, and that's harder. I don't know how to explain to a mapper how to fix their problems. This is, again, a problem of you don't know how to mod yet. You know what's wrong, but you don't know how to suggest people how to fix it. So just ask. Again, just ask. It's easy to ask people and get the advice now, right? Then just submit some random garbage and get the advice 3 weeks later as a feedback failure, and that might not even be tackled there, right? So ask people, ask experienced modders, ask BNs, and be like, oh, hey, how can I properly solve this issue on a map I'm modding? And then people can help, right? And then I don't know how to mod diffs below or above the level where my modding/playing comfort zone is. This is, once again, a problem of experience. So when I talked about ensuring that maps are full spreads, a lot of people don't know how to mod low diffs, because they play or they map a lot of insanes, extras, but they don't know how to map or play or know what's wrong with low diffs, right? So this is another issue of experience. You need to go out there and look at normal diffs in the ranking section and what they do. look in the ranking criteria, ask for help on some things that you're not very sure about, and then just get acquainted with those specific difficulty levels. Because comfort zones are fine and dandy, but as a BN, you need to have a comfort zone that spans from the easiest easy to whatever the hardest map you are accepting is. Right? So you need to at least have a comfort zone that spans all the way down from an easy all the way up to an extra, right? And if you don't have that, you're not ready to be a BN yet. Here's a couple of examples of what are good application maps. These should comprise the big majority of your maps that you apply with, right? So these are all good sets, right? With a decently big spread, right? At least up until an insane, but you can go normal, hard, insane, extra, right? So when I say good NHIX/NH high sets, I mean it can be an easy, normal, hard, insane, extra. Just try not to make the spread too large, but we'll talk about that later. But essentially, just have all these different diffs in that map set, right? So, good NHIX sets, but these are all good sets, but some form of problem. Good sets, but the spread gap between two of the diffs is too big. Clear spread problem. You know how to talk about those spread problems. You know how to suggest them to fix it. Either map a new diff or nerf one of the existing diffs because of some problem in that diff specific. Good sets, but with a normal or a hard diff that's too dense. A lot of people have this problem. It's a very easily fixable problem. It's a very easy problem to spot, which is normal diffs have too long chains, like the chains that they use of circles within, or with a gap in between the circles and like the other objects being like one chew. They have too big chains, too big of chains in the whole map. Essentially, they have like the size of their chains is too large for what the normal diff should actually be, and this kind of comes with experience a little bit, but also if their slow sections have chains that are too large compared to the ki or the most intense section or whatever it is, or maybe in a hard diff they have too many dense rhythms, too much 1/4 usage. Those sets have a clear problem, and you can tackle them very easily and like in a focused manner, right? Good sets, but with one or more diffs ignoring the song's rhythm too much. And this is a common problem, again, especially with modern maps. They try to simplify things way too much. They try to make too much of a filler rhythm, too much usage of that. So using too much filler rhythm essentially disconnects your map from the song to a point where that becomes not mapped to the song, essentially. So if the diff, or if all the diffs, or or just one of the diffs, etc., if they ignore the song too much, then that's a clear problem, and you can tackle that as a rhythm general post, etc. We've gone over this sometimes, but yeah. Good sets, but one or more of the diffs has spacing that goes too much against the song's intensity at those points. This is a very simple problem, very easily spottable. Is especially spottable when you're playing the set, right? When you're playing the difficulty in question. When the spacing feels disconnected from the intensity of the song, that's an easily fixable problem, and just nerf the intensity of this, maybe nerf some rhythms, nerf that spacing, and just make sure that the section's intensity matches what the song is bringing, right? right? So, fixable problem, clear. It doesn't have to ruin the set, but it can be a clear problem on a specific section, right? Good sets, but the hit sounds of one or more of the diffs are poorly done. This is, once again, just easily spottable. You just need to listen to the hit sounds, and then you'll see that, hey, one of the samples is like poorly selected. It doesn't sound right. Hey, maybe these samples are unfitting to the song's type. Hey, they're not using enough additions, so it sounds very empty feedback-wise. All these are good sets, but they have a clear problem. Then you have your filler application maps. What are filler application maps? Filler application maps are maps that you should not have more than one in your application. Why? Because they give off very little. They give off very little data, they give off very little of your modding ability to the actual evaluation team. Why is that? Because either you're not going to mod them too much because they have mostly no problems, or they're going to not showcase certain aspects of your modding that we need to know. So those include stuff like marathon maps, because they're not going to be showcasing spread modding like we talked about before. So avoid single diff sets, avoid having more than one at least. Those sets that are like 415 single insane diffs are stuff that also falls under this marathon maps category. And if they're over 7 stars, what essentially is going to happen is and it's a whole different world. And again, this is like a completely different world to what you're normally modding as a BN. We want you to have a wide comfort zone. If you're going with a 7-star map in your application, that's like a marathon map, so it has no spread before it, we're getting like a small glimpse of this one tiny section within that like wide comfort zone that we expect you to have. So try not to include too many marathon maps, especially not like very, very hard ones, or very, very easy ones for that matter. That also doesn't really give off too much value. Avoid maps that are just like great maps with no problems, because like, congratulations, you found a safe map that is rankable. You can insert it and like give off whatever, like you're gonna mod a couple of times on every diff just to polish it a little bit more, but even if you have the best mod on a map with no problems, it's very hard to actually gather data from that. So you can have one and just say, hey, I nominate this map on the box that says like, would you nominate this map and why? You can just be like, oh hey, I nominate this map because I think it's good and it had no problems that I could tell. Right, as far as I could tell. So you can do that, but try not to put more than one of these. The other two ideas here are also a little bit related. So very gimmicky maps with novelty concepts that break too many guidelines on purpose. Why is that? Because it's like a specific part of your comfort zone, right, that you need to have. And you don't even really need to have this. You can just deny those maps as a BN, but like it doesn't show that you know how to mod normal maps with like normal ranking criteria and what you're supposed to actually mod out of regular maps. You're not actually supposed to mod out of very gimmicky maps that are like specifically trying to break those guidelines. So because of that, you can include one of them to just show, hey, I'm very wide open and I know how to know what a mapper's intentions are and like when he's trying to actually break guidelines on purpose. but you shouldn't include too many of those, right? So just one, if that. Then map sets with only no diffs, again, because it's just a specific section, right? It's a specific section of your comfort zones that you're expected to have. So maps are like easy, normal, normal, hard. Like, yeah, we get it. What are application maps to avoid? So application maps to avoid, as we talked about, train wreck maps, very new mappers maps with lots and lots of problems. As a BN, we expect you to just deny them, right? You're not going to try to polish very bad maps because you know those maps are unsalvageable. They're essentially dead on arrival. They can't be fixed unless they get remapped, and it's like this whole bunch of effort on what's essentially never going to be a good map, and will struggle to even become like rankable. It will need like lots of revisions, etc., etc. So, and as we talked about, there are way too many problems in these maps, and for your sake, it's hard to actually point all of them out, which means that if you ever submit these and someone identifies a problem that you didn't point out, you're going to get dinged for it, which is, for your sake, not a very good thing, so you shouldn't really submit like these very, very bad maps, right? Huge spreads. So, a billion diffs in one single map set. And why is that a problem? Well, essentially, is like a lot of work to mod, and a lot of work to like give feedback to your mod. So that's one big reason. And also another big reason is that with huge spreads, you're going to see a lot of like diffs have specific elements that could be problematic, right? And you're not going to be able to focus on them all because there's too much work. And when you have a huge spread, and what we're essentially like expecting you to do is we expect every diff to be modded equally and with equal and good like focus, right? So we need you to be focused and ready to mod every diff, and in a lot of cases that's not going to be the case, right? So if you're modding huge spreads, I would advise you to not do so. Anything with diffs that go over 8 stars, just because you're not going to be able to like tell that some things that are problems, and for the most part, maps that go over 8 stars, they have to be like extremely well vetted, and you have to have like a lot of experience actually knowing what's acceptable and what's not. And most people, I'd say like 95 to 99% of modders don't have that experience and don't have that knowledge. So I would very, very highly suggest or advise you to avoid very, very hard maps like this. On an application mod, of course. Timing hell maps. Why is this a problem? Because it's very easy to find missnaps and poor timing, essentially timing that's done poorly, stuff that's poorly offset, so has like a couple of sections that are mistimed. It's very easy to find on these timing hell maps. So if you see a timing hell map that's like extremely dense in red lines, I would highly advise you to not submit that, because if anyone finds a timing problem in that map, you're gonna get dinged for it, and it's just safer in an application standpoint. it's safer to go with either a couple red lines only or just safe one red line maps, right? And that's for your sake, again. And then ultra marathons. And why are those a big deal? Well, because once again, the marathon stereotype goes through, which, like, ultra marathons are hardly ever going to have more than one diff, and there's the whole spread issue, where marathons without a spread, you're not showcasing your spread modding ability. But also, when you go over 12 minutes, it's just like, okay, you have a map of over 12 minutes that is one diff, and you've modded this. Unless your mod is like extremely well structured and points out everything that's wrong with it, that means that there's gonna be some place, some like small section of this map that is potentially problematic, right? It's one map. It's like one thing, it's one singular difficulty, one go at it. So you might lose focus over the duration of the map. You might not spot certain things. And there are a couple of things like going over hit sounds, going over timing, that on such a long map, it really takes its toll on your focus, and it's hard to actually maintain such focus over a singular extended period of time like this. So on a proper mod, you should go over a map like 2 or 3 times at least, and 36 minutes of your life to maintain focus over the entire duration of it is a little hard, right? So avoid those if possible as well. Now here's the feedback translator I talked about, and for this I've essentially taken the last 50 evaluations that have resulted in failures, and I've taken the most common problems that people are given on the feedback, so that people essentially have with their mods. And then I'm gonna show them on screen and talk a bit about what those actually mean, right? So let's get started. Lack of modding experience is a nice way to say that your modding is not up to par. It sucks, right? And I say this very bluntly just to put it in a clear way. This problem means your modding level is not anywhere close to what we expect of a beatmap nominator. Once again, you go back to those issues that we talked about in the common issues while gathering maps, right? And it goes back to that. You don't have enough experience. You have poor grasp on explaining how, things are bad. You have a poor grasp explaining on how to solve things that are bad. And you have, on our view, you have a poor comfort zone. Like, you have a very small comfort zone, if even a comfort zone at all, right? So that's what that means. Lack of impactful modding means that you have either nitpicked throughout your whole mod and have missed actual impactful issues, or it means that you have not modded enough, especially when it comes to big issues on the maps you've selected. And this most often comes when someone selects good maps, but instead of actually modding the issues that they should have, they just nitpick, they blanket mod, they mod NCs, they mod very specific spacing that isn't really a problem, and they miss the big problems, right? So that's what that means. Lack of substantial content means all of your mods are bloated and have no actual value. So this means that you're just blanket modding or like visual modding and you're not actually tackling issues in maps. Or it might just concern the fact that your mods have no mods in them. They have no suggestions, no problems. Like they're very, very small. And they don't have enough content in them to actually pass you. And a common example of that is when someone just puts 3 really good maps in their application with no problems. And that just means that, like, what are we to gather from these other than the fact that you identified 3 good maps? Like, we didn't actually get the feeling that you could tell a good map from a bad map, or a problem from a non-issue. You just got 3 good maps and you submitted them, right? So lack of substantial content means that your mod doesn't have modding in them. Your mods don't have modding in them, essentially, right? So that's what that means. This is pretty self-explanatory, but as we've talked about a little bit, it happens a lot. Like, you have no idea how much this shows up in failure feedbacks, right? So, low diff modding is extremely important, and what this means is that you don't give enough importance to it. You don't put enough focus or emphasis on your low diff mods, which means you have like 1 or 2 timeline mods, and you're missing general issues, you're missing density issues, contrast issues, rhythm issues, whatever. Like, you're just lacking focus and you're lacking knowledge of your low diffs to properly mod them, right? So just mod more low diffs, have more low diffs in your arsenal, and be more familiar with them. That's essentially what that means. Missing mapper's intention. This is also a common one, and this means that you're being very nitpicky, and nitpicky to a point that you're suggesting things that the mapper clearly has done on purpose and is clearly allowed to do on purpose, and you're missing that completely and just suggesting they change it. So a common example of this would be if someone is to break a guideline and their map supports the breaking of that guideline through its structure or through what it's actually like doing in a certain section or through whatever BPM it is. So say it's like a low BPM, it's breaking a guideline that's written for 180 when it's like 130. That's all like mapper intent. They know they're breaking that guideline, but because of the BPM they can, right? Or because of the map's design they can, and you're missing that completely. So that's one of the big ones as well. This shows up a lot. Lack of proper explanations means that your mods have the where and how, right? So how to fix something and where it is, but they don't actually have the reason for that problem. They don't know the why that is a problem. So if you don't have the why, then why should anyone change what's currently in there if they don't know what's wrong with it? So proper explanations are required to have people actually change things, and they're very required for the BNs. So if a lot of your maps if a lot of your mods just look like timestamp Control G, timestamp hit sound, timestamp whatever, then that means you have a lack of proper explanations. Unclear explanations is a little bit different. unclear explanations means that you are tripping over yourself when explaining the why. So you have either a completely wrong reasoning or a confused reasoning that's eventually correct but says a lot of stuff that's wrong, and that makes it unclear. So the biggest and most common fix for this is just to make your modding posts smaller and simpler. Don't try to overcomplicate things. Try to always keep it simple. So the fewer words and the less complicated words, the better. Miss general issues means that you miss general issues. Congratulations. This means that one or more of the mods you submitted are missing big problems that are general issues in those maps. So what are general issues? This map has a really poor concept of spacing. This map has poor rhythm construction. This map has intensity that doesn't match the songs. This map has poor hit sounds. This map has a poor spread progression from the last difficulty. And many more. So if you miss these, that means you need to brush up in your knowledge a little bit. Just brush up on that knowledge and try again. And keep a focus on those general issues, because those are the most important ones when you're actually making an application, because those give us the most data on you and whether you're able to tell a good map from a map that is potentially good but has problems, and also a good section from a section that's not good, that's not following the song or the song structure or the song's intensity or whatever it may be. Overstating the importance of issues means you are Nazi modding. You are doing stuff and pointing stuff out that is very minor, but insisting it's a big deal, either by problem stamping everything or problem stamping stuff that is clearly subjective and not a problem, or by missing mappers' intentions and also doubling down on it and making it seem like it's the end of the world. So it's one thing to be wrong, it's another thing to be wrong and double down on it. So be very careful about overly nitpicking a map. Misconception of issues. This means you didn't read the ranking criteria correctly. This means that you think something is an issue when it isn't. And you insist that it's an issue through the ranking criteria, but it's actually not. And you're using the ranking criteria in a way that's misconstruing its words and its wording. So be very careful. Always ask people when you're trying to enforce a ranking criteria rule, but you don't actually know what it properly means. Like, if you're a little bit confused, just ask people and ask them if this is breaking said rule. Creating issues where they don't exist is probably the worst thing you could possibly do as a modder, because you're taking something that is good and making it bad. So when you do this, you are essentially not only missing the mapper's intention and structure, misconstruing the ranking criteria, but also you are being a dick. You are being a dick. You are creating things that don't exist just to try and prove that you're a capable modder. Right? So this is a really grave mistake, and if you got this feedback, it means that you are very not ready, and you try to make it seem like you are ready. Right? Which is unlike the first one, where, well, we just can very clearly tell On that last one, we can very clearly tell, but you try to mask it.